Dear friends, I'd like to welcome you to our interview series today. Today we are interviewing one of our parishioners. He's Keith Cormier. He's a retired Battalion Chief from the Fire Protection Department, Contra, Costa County. I am so proud to have him here with us today. I'm going to ask him to talk about his life, his career, his family right now. Keith, it's all yours.
Thank you, Father Paulson, for having me here today. And as you mentioned, to talk a little bit about my career, I started back in 1988 with the Riverview Fire Protection District, which at the time served the cities of Pittsburgh, Antioch, and West Pittsburgh at the time, which then changed to Bay Point. In 1994, that fire district merged with Consolidated Fire District, and we became the Contra Costa County Fire Protection District, in which I served for 29 years in total. Throughout those years, I worked in every city in which we encompass, and that starts out east in Antioch, working our way back towards Pittsburgh and Bay Point and Concord, Lafayette, Walnut Creek, Martinez, Pleasant Hill. Forgive me if I forget some, but also El Sobrante and San Pablo. So I've worked in each of those jurisdictions at some time during my career. Over that 29 years, I've held the positions of firefighter, engineer, fire captain, fire training captain, battalion chief, chief of our emergency medical services, and I also had the extreme pleasure of serving as our interim assistant chief of operations for a time being. So that pretty much consisted of my 29 years, and I was most proud of having served right here in Pleasant Hill during the last few years of my career, overseeing the areas in which my family and my children go to church and school right here at Christ the King.
Thank you so much, Keith. I'm so grateful that you can join us this evening. And I know you work very closely with our school, especially in the safety board.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk something about what you do at the school and in terms of what you plan and strategize for this beautiful property?
Most definitely. Most recently, of course, Principal Silvera came on board, and we have an interesting history, as he likes to share the story, going back many years to our years in elementary school playing basketball against each other. But he offered me a position to serve on the safety committee here with Christ the King. And during that time, we have done several things in regards to making the school safer for children and faculty members and everyone who attends the school here. That includes our emergency drills, making sure we have viable escape routes in case emergencies do occur. Plans have been put together. So, yeah, those are the types of things that we have done here with the Safety Committee here at Christ the King School.
Thank you, Keith. I know in your 29 years of service with the fire department, tell us some experiences that you have had.
Yeah, people always ask me what was the worst accident I went to or most scary situation I've been in. And I always refer back to a very interesting call I went on. I'll never forget the day. It was New Year's Eve prior to 2000. So it was December 31st, 1999. And the incident we were responding to was a vehicle accident. And unfortunately, a vehicle was struck from behind and went over. It was traveling eastbound on Highway 4 and went over the freeway, railway, and tumbled down approximately 300 feet. Unfortunately, the driver perished, was not wearing a seatbelt, and I talk about the gory incidents that did occur, but the driver unfortunately was decapitated during that time. So that's just one of the situations that we happen to run into as firefighters. We have to go down and, see that unfortunate circumstance and, of course, assist with removing the body from that situation. So that's just one of the situations. And, of course, we've gone to numerous fire incidents where we've had to see some damage and destruction and people getting hurt and harmed. So those are just a few of the things that I've had to experience through my years working with the Contra Costa County Fire Protection District.
Thank you, Keith. I just wanted to know, some of my parishioners are sending their gratitude for joining us today. Someone said, thank you for sharing your perspective.
Thank you.
Another parishioner said, thank you for sharing your time with us. So our parishioners are very, very appreciative of your presence with us today. There are many fires, over 500 fires going on in California right now. Some of them are really close to us. Can you talk to us about the fires that are raging in California right now?
Yes, I can say it's a very interesting time for us, and unfortunately it's becoming a norm for us here in California. And people often ask me, did this occur? Did you respond to incidents like this? And I tell them that fires happen really every day. And it's only when the unfortunate circumstance occurs when you have wind, a high wind with high heat and temperatures, low humidity, and lots of dry fuel. When all those factors come together, that's when we come about these unfortunate circumstances that occur. And they may have been started as a result of PG&E, as we have seen in the past. Someone could just have a fire in their backyard that got out of hand as a result of those other factors coming into play. Or in the unfortunate circumstance when someone actually does start a fire illegally, that can occur as well. So yeah, it's a very unique situation that we are in now. Unfortunately, it's becoming a norm and something we will have to deal with and prepare for as citizens here in the community nowadays.
Thank you for that. I just want to talk about, so what do we do if there's a fire? Let's imagine there's a fire in Briones and it's going to affect Christ the King. As you know, many of our families live in Pleasant Hill. We 3 priests live here in the property. If we have to evacuate, what should we keep in mind?
There are several things you need to keep in mind. First of all, planning has to occur. So first of all, we have to think about if that occurrence did happen, that we need to have a plan. And that plan consists of an escape route for one. So we know that not only ourselves, but others will be trying to leave the area as well. So we need to make sure that we have a viable escape route out. That may be a roadway, that may be an alternate route or some other way out. That's one thing. Also, your own personal valuable items. Take an inventory of them. Be aware ahead of time. Again, planning is so important. Be aware ahead of time of what you may need in the event of a circumstance where you do have to evacuate. If you have medications, you need to make sure you have those with you because you may be gone not only for hours, but for days and even weeks, who knows? So you need to have those things in mind. Our family recently got a pet going back a couple years, and that's something you also have to consider, the needs of your pet as well. So again, planning for every member of your household, each and every one of you, your family members, adults, if there are elderly persons in your home, them as well, and then finally also pets too.
Okay, thank you for that. The other question that we have is, how do firefighters, the people that you commanded in your battalion, how do they survive during, weeks-long fire?
Yeah, excellent question in regards to how they survive, and we appreciate all the people who are out there giving us praises, giving us support, giving us motivation to continue our work. And it is very difficult, but of course, one thing is training. From the moment you become a firefighter, you are trained to do the job. And it's interesting, as a young firefighter, and I always tell the story as well, that unfortunately I would look forward to responding to a fire. And not that I wanted a fire to occur, but it's just that we received so much training in regards to how to mitigate, how to minimize the amount of damage that could occur, that we want to use those abilities that we've had. So training is a key and paramount thing that we do. In these large fires, though, you'd be amazed. They set up small cities, actually, at these incidents because they know so many firefighters will be coming in to assist and aid. And a lot of logistical support is brought in. So they have a lot of the things they do need to survive during that time. Those are some of the physical requirements they have, but it also has a large task on you emotionally. Long, tiring days, the damage and destruction that you see from day to day. So those types of things, we also have critical incident stress debriefing, which we use often. And just having our other firefighters around us, co-workers that we can discuss with. And fortunately, we know that we can always come home to our families and discuss it with them and friends as well to help us get over those mental or emotional types of things. We have challenges that we have as well.
One of the questions that someone asked is, when you go out fighting fire, how long are you gone? What's the longest you've been out of your family?
So yes, that's an interesting question as well. And I thought about that prior to coming here today. And our fire district is very large. We have people with varying interests. Some like to go out and do water rescue, emphasize that. Some like to go out and fight the wildfires. Me personally, I kind of like to stay home and work around our community, always protecting our community. So oftentimes we have other battalion chiefs, other supervisors, also firefighters who put in requests to go out to these large fires. Fortunately, we haven't had anything extremely large here in Contra Costa County as of recently. And as soon as I say that, I think of the Mount Diablo incident going back several years. So we did, but it was on the eastern portion of our jurisdiction. But just going back, the longest time I've been away really has been 2 days. And so I've gone town for 2 days and had to stay overnight. And this was a fast-moving fire where we did not get a chance to stay in a camp overnight. We did not get a chance to come back and take a relaxation stay. We were working actually for 2 days out and about. So 2 days is the maximum I have been out, but people have been gone for up to 2 weeks or even 3 weeks out on fires.
Thank you for that. Another question that has been asked to me is, what can we do to make sure we avoid setting our house on fire, or to prevent our house being caught in the fire if there's a fire in the neighborhood? What are the precautions that we can take?
So that's definitely a multifaceted question, and I'll throw out there, having been a past member of the Contra Costa County Fire Protection District, I want to give a shout out to their website, which is an excellent resource, and that's cccfpd.org, and that stands for Contra Costa County Fire Protection District.org. If you go to their website, a lot of valuable information in regards to preventing fires, safety plans, and so forth. So that's the first thing I want to mention. In regards to Father Paulson's question specifically about how do we prevent fires around our house, it's interesting. We want to mitigate those hazards around our house that can cause fires. We always want to have a fire extinguisher close by, so you should have a fire extinguisher in your home. As I mentioned, fires happen all the time and they are considered accidents. So you need to have a smoke detector in your home that's working, and also a carbon monoxide detector. And of course, those should be checked annually to make sure the batteries are working. So I can't stress enough having a smoke detector in your home to help to detect fires. But again, go to that website, check out cccfpd.org, and it can give you some valuable information in regards to fire safety. As I also answer this question, there's kind of a multifaceted level of protecting your home. And one aspect is weed abatement. So you want to make sure there are no weeds. We talk about cutting them down to a minimum of 3 inches high. You also want to create a defensible space around your home. And in this very beautiful area here in Pleasant Hill, a lot of us have trees, bushes, plants around our home, and we kind of can't get away from it. But we want to keep an eye on it, make sure they're not brushing up against our home, make sure they are adequately away from our homes, so in case there was a fire, that they would not also catch our house on fire. And also, in regards to that, if your house did catch on fire, again, going back to the fact of having an escape route and also a safety zone. And a safety zone is someplace you can go where you will not be caught in a fire. And so you have to figure that out in your own particular instance, but having an escape route and a safety zone would be paramount in case your home or an area around your home did catch on fire.
One of our parishioners want to thank you in general. Caroline Powers says the firefighters saved her parents' home and her home, and so she says blessings to you.
Thank you.
And a question that is asked is about fire extinguishers. Can you talk about them and where can they be recharged again?
So most often fire extinguishers should be actually, for your home, should be purchased on an annual basis. If you have a business, yes, you can get fire extinguishers recharged, and there is a service that comes around. And you should have a fire extinguisher minimum of 2A 10BC. And that means it can put out a wood fire as well as an electrical fire and also flammable liquid fire. So it has to have those 3 designations, A, B, and C designation on them. And again, for your home, I would really recommend just going out and purchasing a new fire extinguisher every year. They are slated to be good for every year. And there are agencies that can also charge them up again, but those are mostly for businesses. So for your home, you can go to Costco or some other location, not to give a shout out to Costco, but you can go to your local hardware store to obtain a fire extinguisher on an annual basis.
One of our parishioners, Connie Wong, asks, from your experience, what are the common causes of fire in a home?
So the common causes of fire in a home, an excellent question, and I have to say are children. And so that's where supervision comes in. So that is one of the most common causes of fire, and that's children mishandling items that they should not be. So education for your children is most important. Secondly, just in my own personal experience, candles. It's very interesting. Candles are fine as long as they're in a home, but oftentimes people would misuse them, put them in places underneath flammable materials, oftentimes place items over them. So yeah, candles are oftentimes used. So if you do use candles, and people do, just be conscientious and cautious when you do so. Also, during the winter months, people oftentimes will start fires in their home, in the fireplace, or even outside. And also they start their heaters up during that time as well. And so I would recommend that you always maintain all your heating devices to make sure they are safe and in your home. So those are some of the most common causes I've seen for fire through the years, just from my experience.
Have you ever been called to a church or a house of prayer to put out a fire in your experience? And if you have had one of those, can you talk about it?
And I have to delve back into my thought, and I cannot think of any time specifically where I've been called to a church or a house of prayer for a fire. Now, definitely our organization or the fire department here in Contra County has responded to them, but I cannot think of any time in particular. And if it happens to come up in my mind during this interview, I'll have to bring it back up. But at this time, I cannot think of any.
All right, that's good. I feel good about that part. And then, we are living in the days when our air quality is so bad. Can you talk about different levels of air quality and what that means? And then talk also about the dangers of smoke inhalation.
Excellent question in regards to air quality and smoke inhalation. And I am no expert in regards to that. However, I have experienced both in responding to fires and, of course, living in this time where we have fires that are going on around us. One of the best protections that most people have is to stay away from it, first and foremost. And they talk about, again, planning. You will receive a forecast in regards to if smoke should be in our area. And if you have that ability, you should remove yourself, especially those individuals who have underlying health conditions or respiratory problems. That is your first and foremost plan of action, is to move away from where the smoke will be. In times when you cannot do that, then it is appropriate to wear a mask. So you can wear a mask, and of course, you've seen through the news and different information that the N95 mask is most appropriate, and it can remove, and the 95 means that it can remove 95% of the particles in the air. And most smoke particles are small, so you need that type of mask to wear if you are going to be in a smoky area. Also inside your home, you can kind of avoid the smoke, so not being outside would be appropriate as well. So those are some of the ways you can deal with smoke that is in the air if you have to be in it. The dangers of smoke are there, and I obviously know those very well. I have to tell a story, as I've gone through my career. Back in the day, we used to go to a fire and be proud of it, and I hate to say it, but it'd be a badge of honor to blow your nose for the next 2 days and have black soot coming out of your nose. As we progressed through the years, though, firefighters realized the negative health benefits of that, and we realized that we would have to start wearing breathing apparatus, that we would try to avoid the smoke, that the equipment that we wore would get smoky and still have particles. We have to clean it appropriately. So definitely smoke is something we want to try to avoid, and I'm very impressed lately with the fire service in general in regards to the actions they have taken to prevent that exposure from firefighters. It's inherent, we can't avoid it because we actually go to fires, but we can minimize those dangers when we do respond.
Do you think air purifiers are worth using it at home during this time?
So air purifying respirators, I guess, and there are several types of respirators. So yes, it does work. And I guess when you mention that, I think of the big mask on your face with canisters on the side. And yes, the larger type of purifying respirator you get, the more effective it will be. And again, starting as small with the N95 respirator would be the lowest level. The air purifying respirator would be next. And then you go to a full face mask, which would bring oxygen into your body, but that's going pretty deep into protecting yourself.
Another question, How often should we get our fireplaces cleaned, especially just before using them at winter time? Um, do we have to do it every year? What's your take on that?
Yes, you should get your fireplace cleaned annually. And that also brings up in my mind in regards to your dryer lint filter as well. So the vent going out of your dryer, that needs to be cleaned annually as well. As I think about that, that has been a cause of numerous fires I can remember as well, and responding to people's homes. So yes, you should get your flue of your fireplace cleaned out to prevent those items building up inside your fireplace and eventually catching on fire. And also, like I just mentioned, your dryer vent as well, that should be cleaned out annually as well to prevent that lint from catching on fire.
Another question I have is whenever we call 911, it's always the police, the ambulance, and the fire department.
Yes.
Can you talk about what you do and what your training in that field is?
Yeah, so anytime there is an incident that occurs, and I'll specifically talk about a medical incident, people oftentimes ask me, why do the fire engines show up when all we need is an ambulance? Well, the way our emergency medical system is set up in Contra Costa County is that the fire stations are strategically located to respond within approximately 5 minutes to any emergency medical incident in the county. Ambulances are strategically located to respond in approximately 7 to 9 minutes. So our system is set up so that firefighters respond first, stabilize the situation, and then the paramedics on the ambulance show up shortly thereafter and respond to, of course, transport the patient to the nearest hospital to continue care. Now, of course, those situations can change at any given time in regards to where you're located, where our fire engine is located, where the ambulance is located. That could change at any time in regards to that stacked level of response. And then also we have the police responding as well, which are very important depending on the type of incident. It's interesting, responding to medical calls or any type of emergency situation. It can be a very stressful type situation. So we also like to have law enforcement there to quell any of those situations and to minimize any disruption that we may have in providing our service.
Thank you so much. That's a beautiful answer. I'm going to change gears a little bit in terms of you come to Christ the King Church a lot. How does your faith help you in fulfilling your responsibilities?
Yes, well, faith definitely helps fulfill responsibility as a firefighter. And I'll say that one thing as firefighters, and we can talk about the Bible and Jesus and how he treated people. And one thing I always try to encourage folks to do, and I'll just back up a little bit and say the one reason I like to promote within the fire service is because I have more influence over the people I worked with. And a couple things I like to be sure of when I worked is I wanted to be competent at my job so that I knew what I was doing each and every day when I went out there. So when I provided a service, it was an appropriate and efficient and proper service that I was providing. Secondly, I wanted to make sure I respected each and every individual. So when I arrived at the incident, I provided a courteous response, a respectful response, always. So those are two things I always want to make sure of. And there's a third one, I'm trying to think of it right now. So that is responding, providing courtesy and respect to each and every individual, knowing your job, and also treating people equally and fairly. So not discriminating against any individual. And so when Father Paulson asked me about how faith relates to that, those are some of the essential teachings from the Bible and from church, and that I give each and every day or each week when I would go to church, and each and every day my kids get in school. So it's very important. I was actually raised in Catholic school myself, went from first grade all the way up through high school in the Catholic church and Catholic schools. And so I carried those beliefs onto the fire service. And as I mentioned, as a supervisor, I like to make sure that the employees I work with and train with also carried those same beliefs.
Thank you for that. I know that your son attends Christ the King School, right?
Yes.
How does he like Christ the King School?
He enjoys it. So actually I have a daughter in 8th grade, which finally, we reached that plateau of 8th grade, and my son is in 6th grade. So they're both enjoying the school. We were pleased as parents. Actually, my wife Cynthia and I to have our kids come here. Even prior to them being of school age, we were passed by Christ the King School, and we just kind of point over and say, we're going to have our kids go to that school. And of course, attending church here just made us believe even more so the reason that we should have them here. But they enjoy it immensely. The camaraderie they have with their classmates, they're both involved in sports, so they've enjoyed that as well. And all the activities all year long here at Christ the King. And as we approach this September and forthcoming October, unfortunately, things may change this year as a result of our the pandemic and coronavirus and our shelter in place and so forth. But all the events that Christ the King has each and every year, being the ice cream social and the, I can't think of them all now as I sit here, but all the events the kids enjoy. So they are definitely enjoying their time here at the school.
Thank you for that. Maybe what I'm going to ask you is a little personal, and feel free. In the context of what's happening in our country, the march against racism, equality, human dignity. You are a firefighter, probably not in the law enforcement on the streets. But what's your take on it? And what would you say to my community in terms of racism, discrimination, fairness, justice, all of that?
Yes, as I mentioned before, and as you mentioned, Father Paulson, there are a lot of things going in our community right now. And of course, we talk about the coronavirus and the pandemic and those challenges that firefighter and public safety personnel in general are dealing with. I also talk about the major fires that are going on, and again, public safety having to be involved in that as well. But as you mentioned, one of the major things that are going on right now is the Black Lives Matter movement in regards to the brutality that has been going on, the unfairness and the inequality that has occurred through the years. And as a firefighter, as an African-American person myself, for many years, there has been inequality in the fire department. And just through the years, it has always been a primarily Caucasian male-dominated organization. And during my time there, I've fought for years to make sure it was more inclusive. And that means more women, more people of color, and just diversity in all regards. So specifically with the fire service, that's been my involvement. Yes, in our community, each and every day, we can all do something to make our community better. And so as an individual, I still do that now that I'm out of the fire service. I work each and every day to try to make sure that, first of all, set a positive example, and then also ensure that folks out there can treat each other with equality, and that everyone has a fair opportunity to advance and they don't get treated unfairly.
Thank you for taking on that question. I appreciate that very much. My other question is, when you walk into a church, our church can hold probably 1,000 people. When you walk into a gym, what are the things that we should pay attention to so that in case of emergency, we can protect ourselves?
Excellent question in regards to when you walk into any building or you respond or go to any function where there's a large group of people. And as a firefighter, I inherently always look for a way out. When I walk into a building, I look to see how I can get out in case there is an emergency. If possible, I always either stand or sit close to that emergency. Now, that can't always be the case because I'm maybe with my family members who've already found a seat or have been assigned a seat if I'm in a large auditorium or somewhere. So identifying those exits is first and foremost. And there's been several situations actually where I've been to restaurants or large gatherings where I didn't feel comfortable for whatever reason. Either the exits weren't appropriate, there were too many people, or even the facility we were in didn't look like it could withstand any type of emergency. So if you do feel uncomfortable, you can also leave as well. But I think most importantly, knowing your way out. Too many times we go into a situation not being cognizant of the possibility of an emergency occurring, and then when it does occur, we panic and don't know what to do. So again, going back to planning, unfortunately, each and every day of our lives, we have to plan. So when we go somewhere, such as a church or a large gathering, we need to plan on how we can escape that in case an emergency did occur.
Okay, thank you so much. Can you share with us why you became a firefighter? What was that journey like? And what would you say to a young man or a young woman who is contemplating becoming a firefighter?
Good question. And I'll first start with the young person who is interested in being a firefighter. And I've run into them all the time. Of course, everyone as a young child wants to be a firefighter. They see the fire engine rolling by and they see the firefighters in their uniforms. And we always encourage them to be a firefighter. And at that time, we can stress upon them that the job of a firefighter is to help your community. And so we encourage them at that young age to go out each and every day to help their community. Now, as they get older and as they go to school and get a job and so forth, we also encourage them, help your community, whether that be in your school community, in your neighborhood community, at your job, or wherever you might be. So anything you can do in regards to assisting your community will be a benefit to your goal to becoming a firefighter. And my travel to becoming a firefighter is very interesting and unique. As I mentioned, being an African-American man, firefighting has been a primarily Caucasian male-dominated occupation for years. However, I've been the benefit of a father who was a retired fire chief from the city of Richmond. He retired in 1995. And then going back to my grandfather, was actually a firefighter in the city of Oakland from 1949 to 1977. So I was a rarity in the fire service. First of all, having three generations, being my father and grandfather, and then definitely as a black man in that career, having three generations of firefighters. So as a youngster, everybody told me I was going to be a firefighter growing up. And as a youngster, as many are, I was rebellious. That's the last thing I was going to do, was do what everybody else said I was going to do. But as I got older, I realized it was an excellent career. And I remember talking about it in my interview when I got hired as a firefighter. I realized it was a career that could provide an excellent family life. I saw it through my father and my grandfather. It could benefit me in several ways in regards to a future, in regards to establishing, putting in time, and then having a pension upon leaving that and working and being able to live the rest of your life. And also just the overall benefit of each and every day going out and serving your community. And that was either during a call when the bell goes off and you go out and help someone, or just each and every day driving around the neighborhood in your fire engine and seeing a hazard in someone's home and just identifying that for them and letting them know, or just providing a smile or a wave to that kid who is walking by and seeing us drive by. So yes, firefighting has definitely been a benefit to me. It was kind of inherent. I was going to do it. I guess everybody told me I was, and I ended up, and I was glad I did. And I would encourage anyone as a career to go out and attempt to be a firefighter or public safety officer in our community.
Thank you so much. You know, one of our parishioners, Teresa Mega, just wrote saying her great sense of appreciation. We had a fire at Christ the King many years ago. Our school was completely gutted down, but we appreciate the great efforts put in by the firefighters. Keith, I know you're retired now, and I'm sure you have a lot of time in your hands. We have lots of retired law enforcement people, police, and others ministering as ushers at our church, because just as you said, they always look out for the doors, they look out for emergency situations, and just going to extend that invitation to you that I would be really, really happy if you join us as one of our ushers. Ushers normally welcome people into the church, and then as the mass is going on, they're always looking out for assistance. If people faint, they're the first ones to call the ambulance. They look out to help our church in terms of emergencies and things like that. So if you think about it, I will be extremely happy, and we'll get you placed right away, and we will put you in charge of our battalion one day here.
Definitely. Okay.
The Ushers Battalion.
Yes.
Yeah, but I want to thank you for being with us today. It was a great privilege for us to have you here, talk to our church, to our communities of Christ the King and St. Stephen. But more than anything else, it's great to have you as a family at our church, at our school. Thank you for ministering to our school principal, Mr. Silvera, in the in the emergency team, in the safety team, for all the perspectives that you bring to our school. I wish you all the best, and I hope that your family does well. You stay safe during this difficult time. And if I have questions about fire or anything in that line, if I have a young man who wants to pursue being a firefighter and wants to look up to a mentor, Keith, you are the man. So thanks again to those of you who have been joining us this evening. So grateful that you could join us, and please spread the word about this interview so that others can go back and listen to it. We have a mass at 6 p.m. for Our Lady of Perpetual Help. Tomorrow is Friday, and I want to let you know that this Saturday, after the 5 p.m. mass, our masses are short, 35 minutes. Our musicians will continue playing some beautiful music. So you can sit on the lawn, bring your own chair, bring your own bottle of wine, your own glass, sit down and enjoy some flute and saxophone and some beautiful jazz music from our musicians like Maria from St. Stephen, Phyllis Gurnett, our music director, Jennifer from our church, and our other musicians. So I look forward to this Saturday, and then our Sunday services will be the same. We have a Spanish Mass at 12 noon, and I love that Mass. I love the music at that Mass. And people, this is a service that we are doing to the Hispanic community at this time. They have so few opportunities to go to church. And at that Mass, and Christ the King Church has got that beautiful lawn where they can sit down and pray together. So spread the word to Hispanic friends that you may have, that we have Mass at 12 noon. Once again, thank you, and we'll see you for the next interview next Thursday at 5 p.m. God bless. Thank you again to Mr. Keith Cormier, and we wish you well.
Thank you.